time ago, surrounded by a crush of cameras as he left court. The police superintendent, who on live TV today admonished the actor, asking how could he allegedly orchestrate something like this? How could he use a noose? And revealing concern for the true victims of racism and homophobia. And tonight, right here, the evidence, the alleged check paid to those two brothers. President Trump's longtime advisor, Roger Stone, hauled before the judge today to explain why he posted an image of that judge with what appeared to be the crosshairs of a gun next to her head. The bombshell development late today in North Carolina, the congressional race. Were they filling out ballots? Were they tampered? The Republican who appeared to win by less than 1%, what his own son said, leaving him in tears. The candidate suddenly calling for a new election himself. The alleged terror plot here in the U.S., federal authorities calling a Coast Guard lieutenant a domestic terrorist. Tonight, his alleged plan. Syracuse basketball coach Jim Boeheim hitting a man on the highway, killing him. Boeheim issuing a statement tonight saying he's heartbroken. The scare on a passenger jet, a blown tire, and then the emergency landing. Nike under fire tonight for that scare on the court. And celebrating the famous musician who had everyone singing, "I'm a Believer."
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Thursday night. And we begin tonight with the stunning fall today for the actor who told police he was the victim of a racial and homophobic attack. Tonight, he's charged with a felony, and the Chicago police superintendent who went on national TV with his own words for Jussie Smollett. The actor who claimed he was the victim is tonight formally charged. Police say he orchestrated the whole thing. Charged with a felony for filing a false police report. Free on bond at this hour, he was seen late today leaving the courthouse surrounded by cameras. And right here tonight, the new evidence now presented, and that police superintendent who did not hide his anger. ABC's Eva Pilgrim leading us off.
Late today, Jussie Smollett facing a crush of cameras as he left a Chicago courthouse, holding on to a security guard before slipping into a waiting car. His family joining him in court today to show their support.
Do you believe your brother's story?
As Smollett faced a judge for the first time, accused of filing a false police report. Chicago's police superintendent with blistering words for the actor.
Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. I'm left hanging my head and asking why. Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? So I'm offended by what's happened, and I'm also angry.
For weeks, Smollett insisted he was the victim.
Who the would make something like this up or add something to it or whatever it may be? You do such a disservice when you lie about things like this.
But police say that's exactly what he did.
Smollett attempted to gain attention by sending a false letter that relied on racial, homophobic, and political language. When that didn't work, Smollett paid $3,500 to stage this attack and drag Chicago's reputation through the mud in the process. And why? This stunt was orchestrated by Smollett because he was dissatisfied with his salary.
At the center of the case, those two brothers first seen in that grainy surveillance video. Prosecutors today laying out in excruciating detail how Smollett first enlisted one brother he knew from Empire.
Defendant Smollett texted Abel stating, "Might need your help on the low."
Abel had been the actor's personal trainer, and police say he supplied Smollett with the designer drug ecstasy.
Defendant Smollett then stated that he wanted to stage an attack where Abel would appear to batter him.
Prosecutors say Smollett suggested the older brother help.
Smollett asked Ola if he could trust him. When Ola said he could, Smollett detailed his plans of the attack.
The brothers now cooperating with police.
We have the check that he used to pay them.
They're seen here on store surveillance buying supplies, a red hat, ski mask, and gloves for an attack police think Smollett hoped would be captured on camera.
The brothers had on gloves during the staged attack where they punched him a little bit, But as far as we can tell, the scratches and bruising that you saw on his face was most likely self-inflicted.
Smollett's attorney says he enjoys the presumption of innocence. Given these circumstances, we intend to conduct a thorough investigation and to mount an aggressive defense. Tonight, Chicago's top cop worries about what this means for real victims. And even still, he had concern for Smollett.
I'll continue to pray for this troubled young man who resorted to both drastic and illegal tactics to gain attention. My concern is that hate crimes will now publicly be met with a level of skepticism that previously didn't happen.
And Eva Pilgrim with us live tonight outside that courthouse in Chicago. Eva, you watched along with us as that police superintendent also said what he would now like from Jussie Smollett at this point, and this is what he said.
Absolute justice would be an apology to this city that he smeared, admitting what he did, and then be man enough to offer what he should offer up in terms of all the resources that were put into this.
Eva, that superintendent not holding back today, saying what so many people in that community there in Chicago and really across the country have been feeling as they've watched this story, unfold before their eyes over a series of several nights here.
That's right, David. That police superintendent clearly impassioned, as was the judge in one moment during this hearing, setting Smollett's bond at $100,000, unusually high for this type of charge. And tonight, Smollett's attorneys at one point telling the court that the actor would be back at work on the set of Empire. David.
Eva Pilgrim tonight leading us off. Thank you, Eva. Now to another courtroom, and President Trump's longtime friend and confidant Roger Stone getting a stinging reprimand for his Instagram post that included an image of the judge overseeing his case with what appears to be the crosshairs of a gun next to her head. Stone seen leaving the court late today without speaking to the media because he's now been placed under a complete gag order. ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas tonight.
A subdued Roger Stone clutching his wife's hand today as he walked into court, where he pleaded for mercy and forgiveness from Judge Amy Berman Jackson. Judge Jackson clearly frustrated and concerned after Stone posted a picture of her online. In the corner, what looks like the crosshairs of a gun. Today, Stone repeatedly apologized, calling it a stupid lapse of judgment. He said he never really looked at the image before posting it, at one point saying he thought it was a Celtic symbol. But the judge didn't buy it, telling Stone there's nothing ambiguous about crosshairs. President Trump's longtime friend explained the episode as an outgrowth of stress, telling the judge, "I'm having trouble putting food on the table and paying the rent." Although Stone apologized profusely, Judge Jackson said his apology, quote, "rings quite hollow." And with that, the judge issued her ruling, a full gag order. Stone is not to speak with anyone publicly about his case, period. Mr. Stone, she said, "I'm not giving you another chance."
The judge was not having it today. Pierre Thomas with us live from Washington. That's the Roger Stone story tonight. Pierre, while the president's former advisor was in court today, we know his former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen, meantime, was on Capitol Hill.
That's right, David. Michael Cohen was on Capitol Hill today preparing for his public hearing next week. That hearing is going to be on the same day that President Trump is having his summit with the North Korean leader. Cohen tweeting, "I'm looking forward to the American people hearing my story in my voice." A dramatic day coming, David.
Right in the middle of that overseas trip. All right, Pierre Thomas, thank you. In the meantime, next to that bombshell development in North Carolina tonight, there will be a new election. State officials ordering that election in a congressional race amid sweeping allegations of tampered ballots. The Republican who appeared to win by less than 1% was brought to tears after what his own son said. And then today, that candidate suddenly calling for a new election himself. Here's ABC's Mary Bruce.
After days of dramatic testimony about his campaign's alleged election fraud, tonight a stunning announcement from Republican candidate Mark Harris.
Through the testimony I've listened to over the past 3 days, I believe a new election should be called.
At the center of the controversy, Harris's political strategist, McCrae Dallas, accused of tampering with more than 500 absentee ballots to help Harris win. The election decided by fewer than 1,000 votes. Democrat Dan McCready conceded, but 1 month later, with questions growing, he took it back.
I didn't serve overseas in the Marine Corps just to come back home and watch politicians and career criminals attack our democracy.
Our Steve Osinsami caught up with Dallas, who refused to testify without immunity.
What do you say to people who say that you rigged this election?
No comment.
At the Board of Election hearing, Harris insisted he saw no red flags, but his own son testified that he warned his father that Dallas was, quote, shady.
I love my dad, and I love my mom. Okay? I certainly have no vendetta against them. No family scores to settle. Okay? I think that they made mistakes in this process.
His testimony bringing his father to tears. Today, Harris admitted his son was right, but said at the time he didn't take him seriously.
I'm his dad, and I know he's a little judgmental and has a little taste of arrogance.
And then this surprising twist.
I experienced 2 strokes from which I'm still recovering, and I struggled this morning with both recall and confusion.
Harris then calling for North Carolina voters to get a do-over. And late tonight, the Board of Elections voted unanimously to call for that new election. But we don't know yet exactly when that will be. And tonight, despite our repeated requests, it's unclear whether Mark Harris will be on that ballot. David?
All right, Mary Bruce live from the Hill tonight. Mary, thank you. Next to that new storm battering the Southwest, Arizona, and Nevada, and then heading all the way across the country yet again. A foot of snow in Kingman, Arizona. Look at this, stopping traffic for hours. This is Interstate 40 right there. It also hit the Vegas Strip today. Another storm we're watching as it crosses the country tonight. Meteorologist Rob Marciano with us live, tracking it all. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. It's heading towards the southeast. They can't take any more rain. This is a powerhouse system coming out of the southwest, bringing that rare snow to Vegas and Los Angeles. It'll bang into that Gulf moisture. Really worried about severe weather on Saturday, looking at Little Rock to Nashville already in the orange category. And that is preceded by heavier rain. So looking at flooding, I think, tomorrow across parts of northern Mississippi for the first surge. So the core of the system gets to Chicago by Saturday. Blizzard conditions north and west of that. Severe weather, including tornadoes to the south, and that heavier rain spreading into the northeast by Saturday night. David?
All right, Rob, thanks so much. Next here, a Southwest flight out of Fort Lauderdale blowing a tire on takeoff, then once in the air diverted to Orlando to make an emergency landing. Southwest declaring an operational emergency amid growing concerns. Here's ABC's David Kerley.
Emergency vehicles immediately approaching the Southwest 737 in Orlando after that blown nose gear tire taking off from Fort Lauderdale. The airline says the diversion was out of an abundance of caution. This as Southwest has been forced to cancel hundreds of flights the past week and a half because of unavailability of aircraft. The airline calling it an operational emergency, blaming the maintenance problems on labor issues, saying a slowdown started after its last negotiating session with its 2,400 mechanics.
Now that there's problems with the mechanics union, there seem to be fewer airplanes available on a daily basis.
Southwest mechanics have been negotiating with the airline for a new contract for the past 6 years. While the labor and maintenance issues are unrelated to that blown tire today, it is another public relations incident for Southwest to deal with. David?
David Kerley tonight. David, thank you. Now to the U.S. Coast Guard lieutenant tonight accused of planning a chilling terror plot here in the U.S. He had a stockpile of weapons, authorities say, and a hit list of Democrats, reporters, and innocent civilians. The suspect appearing before a judge today. And here's ABC's Terry Moran.
Tonight, Coast Guard Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hassan is behind bars, ordered by a federal judge to be held without bail on drug and gun charges after allegedly plotting to use this arsenal to, quote, murder innocent civilians on a scale rarely seen in this country.
The sheer number and force of the weapons that were recovered from Mr. Hassan's residence in this case, coupled with the disturbing nature of his writings, appear to reflect a very significant threat to the safety of our community.
The 49-year-old is accused of stockpiling handguns, sniper rifles, and 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Prosecutors described what they say were Hassan's chilling plans, including a possible hit list. On it, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, presidential candidates Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, and cable news host Joe Scarborough. Federal agents also found this locked container holding more than 30 bottles of human growth hormone. The drugs, investigators say, were meant to increase his ability to conduct attacks.
Right now, Hassan is facing only the drug and gun charges. Prosecutors call that, quote, the tip of the iceberg. They say he was a domestic terrorist planning a massive attack. The judge, however, wants to see more evidence of those crimes, or he told the government he'll release Hassan on bail pending trial. David?
All right, Terry Moran watching the case from Washington. Thank you, Terry. Overseas tonight into the Vatican now. Pope Francis opening a landmark summit on clergy sexual abuse. Church leaders from around the world, including the U.S., addressing the scandal that has plagued the church for decades. And tonight, what the Pope did that made immediate headlines. ABC's David Wright from Rome.
One of the first big moments of this unprecedented Vatican summit was spontaneous. Pope Francis kissing the hand of a Polish survivor of sexual abuse. Speaking to bishops and cardinals summoned from around the world to address the issue, the Pope said sympathetic words won't be enough to solve this crisis. The faithful, he said, expect concrete and effective measures.
This is the moment for Pope Francis to stand up and finally do something.
Some organizations move slowly, but this is ridiculous.
Phil Saviano was molested at age 11 by a Catholic priest in Boston, who ultimately had 28 victims. Saviano's story, part of the Boston Globe Spotlight series that went on to inspire an Oscar-winning movie. He's one of a dozen survivors invited to share their views with Vatican organizers. You feel finally heard?
I do feel heard, yeah. Promises are made, but you really have to wait and see what actually happens.
He told me this is not the first time he's come here to discuss this issue, but it is the first time he felt someone in the Vatican was listening. David?
David Wright with us from the Vatican. Thank you. And there is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Thursday. We remember a famous musician here tonight. Also, the mayor under arrest tonight, accused of practicing medicine from his own home and then allegedly opening fire when SWAT teams arrived. What they discovered. The famous college basketball coach who struck and killed a man on the highway. His new statement tonight and what authorities have revealed a short time ago about how this happened. And Nike feeling the heat this evening after that top NBA prospect and that scare seen by so many overnight. A lot more news ahead tonight.
Broke his shoe with his own foot.
Next tonight, the Florida mayor accused of practicing medicine without a license, now facing far more serious charges tonight after allegedly opening fire when deputies showed up. Here's Victor Oquendo.
Under arrest tonight, Dale Masad, the mayor of Port Richey, Florida. He did not go quietly. Masad allegedly firing 2 rounds on county deputies at his home to execute a search warrant.
He shot our members. He's lucky he's not dead.
Police say they found multiple weapons and drugs inside. Just last August, he was arrested for domestic battery and spent the night in jail.
The main thing I learned from the jail is I don't want to go back.
Shortly after, police began investigating him for practicing medicine without a license. According to law enforcement officials, Masad, a former physician who relinquished his license in 1992, had patients coming to his home and even performed medical procedures there.
I am totally disgusted that we could elect a leader that would not only be breaking crime, but shooting at the police.
David, none of the deputies were hit when the mayor opened fire. He's now facing several charges, including attempted murder. David?
All right, Victor, thank you. When we come back, Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim hitting a man on the highway, killing him. His statement tonight and what authorities have just revealed about the deadly crash. And Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim was behind the wheel when he hit a pedestrian on the side of the highway last night who had been in an earlier crash on that highway. They had gotten out of the car.
This is a tragedy. Certainly, it's an accident. Mr. Boeheim did exactly what we would expect him to do. He stopped. He attempted to render aid. He could not have been more cooperative.
51-year-old Jorge Jimenez did not survive Boeheim passing a sobriety test. The coach tonight saying in a statement he is heartbroken. Nike is feeling the heat tonight after that scare involving a top NBA prospect. Duke freshman Zion Williamson's Nike high top split apart seconds into last night's game, spraining his knee. Nike shares closing down more than 1% today. The company is investigating. Duke is a Nike-sponsored school. It's too soon to say when Williamson could return. And a pop culture passing to report tonight.
Oh, then I saw her face.
Peter Tork, who played keyboard and bass for the Monkees, has died. He was 77 years old. When we come back tonight, the Michael Buble surprise here in New York. Tonight, America Strong, Michael Buble and his co-star. This was the moment overnight at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Michael Buble handing the microphone to a young woman in the audience. He asks her name.
Sing it now.
Erin Bellucci from West Hartford, Connecticut. That's her sister, hoping he'll ask her to sing. Buble tells the crowd, go easy on her. It's not planned. And in the crowd, the guy looking for the next American Idol, Ryan Seacrest.
One of the things that he does at his show is he lets somebody in the audience perform. Now, the question always is this a setup or not? Right?
Please, dear God.
So it was not set up, and she was about to sing. She looks back. Is this for real? Turns out Erin is a junior at the University of Delaware studying music education, telling us tonight she wants to teach music to children, but last night was her night. Michael Buble sharing the mic with Erin. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.